Kansas City opponents have been flagged for 48 penalties in the fourth quarter and overtime of one-score games. So to repeat that, go to the last 2 years, the other team Kansas City's playing against, in one-score games of fourth quarter overtime situations, that team has been flagged 48 times. Do you want to guess how many times Kansas City has been flagged?
Under 10.
47.
Oh, wow.
See what's happened? Do you see what's happened?
I bit the
what
apple.
Becomes,
I bit the
right?
apple.
Everybody's biting the apple right now.
Apple,
and
yeah.
Look, as much as I love Mahomes, that shit was gross this weekend, man.
There's no flopping in football, Ryan. There's no flopping. Like
the flop on the sideline.
Oh my God!
If I had a kid who had a poster, we may take it down for a week.
When the flop on that sideline, I had my wife made some Rotel dip, and I had it in my lap with a couple of chips, and it was so egregious.
No, it's good with that chili.
Right. And I literally it fell on the floor because I couldn't believe the acting job that came along with it. It was outstanding. I'm like, get this man an Oscar. To bait the hit, slow down, and then throw his hands up like if he got hit by a shopping cart in the back. I was like, oh, he's playing with people's emotions today. He chose violence because for me, if that's going to be the game, I'm gonna make it worth it. I'm gonna do something dirty. That's just my mindset. Oh, you want to act today? We gonna act. I'm gonna make sure you get your award.
I would not have a problem with a defensive player just destroying one of these quarterbacks.
No question.
Next time they flirt with this sideline shit, okay?
100%.
And I understand what has happened and all the hand-wringing about this isn't the football I grew up with. Ratings would tell you nobody cares.
No,
nobody cares
enough
be able
to adjust, bro.
To do something else.
Right.
The quarterback flags that are excessive, it's done that way for a reason. Now, on the first one, I can at least understand because
the Will Anderson one?
Yeah, when you see the official that's throwing the flag on that, he's reacting to the angle of the drive and then Mahomes going down. Look,
but Ryan, what's the point of replay then? What's the point of replay? Like that hit propelled the Chiefs on to score that drive.
Right. It was huge.
So
flag.
like my point is, what's the point of replay if you can't say, you know what, this it looks bang bang. I understand the referees are it's tough for them in that moment, but what's the point of replay if we can't go back to replay and say, no, that was just a bang bang. It was never no helmet to helmet connection there. What's the point of it?
I agree. I'm just at least justifying why I could understand the initial flag on it because of the angle and what he thought that he saw. And I think this happens a lot with officiating. And I would always wonder whether it's football or basketball. Like I'm thinking about this. There was a Sixers game this year, right? And Jenna Schroeder was officiating from the baseline, and there was already getting a little hot. And Drummond had a play where it looked like he pushed the player down to the ground, and Drummond ends up getting ejected. And then they bring him back in, which is once they overturned it because they knew that it was wrong. And she basically was making the call on something that was like she didn't know why something had happened, but the end result was that somebody was on the ground. And I wonder if officials feel like over time you're better off going with that, even if you didn't see the first part of it, because more often than not that you're going to be right. And look, that game ended up being weird and B got ejected the whole thing. He deserved to be ejected in that one.
Right.
I think what happens with some of these quarterback hits is if I think what could have happened, then I'll likely be right. Now, look, on the second one, you're asking defensive players to do something that's impossible now. It's a bit like Baker has figured this out too. Like Baker will go down in a way where there's going to be physical contact. And yet now everyone's conditioned to think, I can't believe the quarterback was touched. You're like, dude, the quarterback was standing up 2 seconds ago.
And they just dropped straight to the ground. Yeah.
Right. Like, so what am I supposed to do? Kyler Murray had a play on the sideline this year where he's veering towards the sideline. The defensive players give up because they're afraid of even breathing on the dudes.
That's what happened on the flop.
Right.
Like, you see the guys kind of, they start walking, and then you see Mahomes kind of pity-pat to the sideline, and then the one bump he gets is like the whole, like the dramatics behind it. And I'm like, I'm down on dip, and I want to fight Mahomes. Like, it's just, it was insane. And I'm saying to myself, too, on this from this aspect, like, and I thought Aikman said it best on the call. He goes, listen, as a guy who played in a tough era where quarterbacks usually get slammed on the ground, like, I have empathy for these defensive guys. What do you want them to do? They're running full speed to cover the ball, and you have a guy baiting them, and then once they get there, just a tap on the shoulder it looks like something, and a flag's being called. And so it's insane, man. I don't know. I don't know. The NFL clearly has a problem because flopping has entered the NFL.
Yeah, and the sideline stuff is the defensive player has no choice because now you'll see flags where a player was in bounds but veering out of bounds. So then the hit carries itself out of bounds. But there's also been times where I've been pleasantly surprised. Like there was a hit, I think it was the Lamar hit.
Yeah.
Where
Ed
they were
Oliver.
like, they kind of used common sense. You know what was the funniest thing about that was one of the offensive linemen for the Ravens came over to shove the Bills player, and usually the defensive player gets killed because he's not prepared for it, and the offensive lineman's kind of allowed to do it, and everybody just kind of understands it's the way business is done. I think Oliver got up and like jacked up the old lineman, like he was ready.
It was the wrong goon to the party. Right. Not everybody's about that.
You don't see
life.
that very often. Having said all these things, the Kansas City thing that plays out on social media is bullshit. They had pass interferences that were not called in their favor last year on 2 games that I can think of. They had the offsides thing on the Tony play. Like, it's just the numbers do not back it up. But the problem is, Saturday was so gross. But ultimately, like, do you think that's why Kansas City won?
No, listen, I'm going to be honest. I thought they couldn't protect C.J. Stroud. I thought he took a couple back sacks. Dalton Schultz, by the way, was horrible in blocking. I remember the one sack he gave up. They actually triple teamed Karlaftis, and Schultz just kind of just laid like soft, little pretty hand. I'm like, dude, you're in a playoff game. You got to sell out for CJ. At one point they had 2 guys on routes, and it was a max protection. They were just trying to keep him upright. And so I thought they just did a horrible job protecting him. I thought he took a couple bad sacks. But with all that said, you know, if the Tech, I can't say his name, the Texans kicker. I mean, they had a chance to tie that game. It's 13-13. It's a botched kick. So the Texans I thought they fought. They were scrappy. I thought Mixon had a good game. I thought up front they just had a really, really bad game. And Stroud, I thought it was tough. I thought he tried to stay in there and deliver the football. It just wasn't working for him.